Hello, this is Carl Rowan with Sherline Products. Today we're going to be going over replacement of the anti-backlash nut and slide nut on our 6540 LAZ laser engraving tooling plate and 8-inch by 18-inch XY base. All right, okay. We've got Y-axis and X-axis. All right, we use these for laser engraving. Most of the time when people are laser engraving, they're laser engraving anodized aluminum, also ceramic cups. When you laser anodized aluminum, what's coming off of the part is aluminum oxide, which is what they use on sandpaper. So it's very abrasive. The dust, the black powder that comes off is actually aluminum oxide. If you're anodizing ceramic coffee mugs or ceramic parts, then what's coming off of your part is actually ceramic. It's glass, which is one of the hardest substances on earth other than diamond. All right. Okay, on the XY slide, if you turn it upside down, you can see that the X-axis is underneath. Okay, so very little particles from your lasering gets on this axis at all. The Y-axis is exposed when you have the table all the way in or all the way out, and particles, laser dust does get on this screw. So since this is a screw that's exposed, this is the axis that we're going to go over first as far as replacing the anti-backlash nut and the slide nut. Okay. Okay, first we're going to take off the table. Okay. When we put our tables on, there's mounting holes every 4 inches on this. For laser engraving, because you're not putting any real stress on it, we only use 4 of them. Makes it a lot easier to take it off and on if you have to. And you're not putting any real force on it, so it's not going to move anywhere anyhow. So on this one, we just have our 4 corners. Okay. Okay, and then you should be able to just slide it off. T-nuts are still inside the T-slots. Slide it off, and we'll set it over here for right now. Okay, now we have our XY table, and as you can see, the Y-axis is exposed. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the thrust collar and the bushing that stabilize the far end of the X-axis screw. And for that, let's put it this way. We just have one socket head screw right here, one 540. Let me get my glasses on. And just break this guy loose. Put it out. Okay, now when you take this off, it's a thrust collar, and then there's also the bushing, which is right here. Okay, and this is just sitting in here free. It's not a press fit. Sometimes this will end up staying on the lead screw. When you take off the thrust collar, don't lose this piece. And if you look at it, this piece has a shoulder on it. When you put it back together, the shoulder goes against the inside of the thrust collar so that the shoulder on the screw is actually capturing it inside the thrust collar and it won't come out. If you put it on the other way, then over time it's going to work its way out and you'll lose it. So for right now, we'll just put all this off to the side so it's ready to go back in. Okay. All right, the next one. If you've got backlash, excessive backlash in your Y-axis, there's 2 things that could cause this. One is that this preload nut right here has come loose, okay? And the other one is that this has come loose, or your anti-backlash and slide nut are worn out. Okay, the lead screw is rolled steel. The anti-backlash nut and the slide nut are brass. So the brass parts are the wear part. They're the part that's going to wear out, which saves your screw. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to back off the anti-backlash nut. We just break the keeper piece loose. Only has to be loosened a couple. Actually, we'll take it all the way off. And this is just an 832 button head screw that holds this in place. Okay, and we'll put this off to the side also. Okay, then either an X-Acto knife or a straight blade jeweler screwdriver is all you need to knock this loose. And this is actually loose now. If it's up there nice and tight, just put it into one of the knurl spots, give it a little tap to break it loose, and this should thread off. Okay, and all we want to do is take it out. Okay, I've got about 2 inches right here, and what we're going to do is thread this guy up the 2 inches close to it, so he's out of the way. Okay, now the next part, the slide nut that is inside is held in place with a set screw that's in the mill saddle. So what we have to do right now is move the mill table over far enough to get access to that set screw. So we're just going to move it out here. Okay, on the bottom we have our hard stop also. That's going to have to be removed. So let's take that guy off. And that's just another 1032 socket head screw. Okay, we'll put him over here. Okay. Okay, this next part is important. Where the set screw is for the slide screw is directly above my screw, which is right about here. I want to bring the edge of the table past that point to get access to it. If you go too far past that point, you're going to screw your X-axis screw clean out of the saddle, and then you'll have to redo your X-axis too. So as I get close to having my edge on center line of the mill saddle, I want to slow down, and I just want to go far enough to gain access to this hole right here. That's my set screw right there. All right, so that's as far as I want to go with my mill saddle. Okay, this is in pretty tight. You have to use the small end of your Allen wrench to get it open. Okay, and all you have to do is back it out about a turn and a half, 2 turns max. And then it'll take the force off of the slide nut and allow us to disassemble this. Right now what I'm going to have to do is take the entire screw out. In order to do that, I'm going to have to take apart my hand wheel assembly. And on the hand wheel there's a 540 screw that's holding the hand wheel into the lead screw. Okay, actually first I'm going to back off my preload nut. Okay, this is a left-handed thread on this screw, so I'm going to have to go this way to back it off. Just back it out a little bit, and that's good. Okay, in order to break this nut, what I do is I put the Allen wrench in there, and then I pull it against the hand wheel knob, and that breaks him loose. Now, this whole assembly right here has been aligned with the screw in the saddle. Okay, so if I leave this on, then I don't have to realign this at all. Okay, so I'm going to leave this on for right now. Okay, okay. Then, because I'm not attached to this anymore, I can just push my saddle down like so and move it out of the way. All right. Okay, and as you can see, I've got enough room to get my slide nut outside of the saddle. I need a little more room than that to work with, so what we're going to do is pull it back in and just turn this screw a few more times. Okay, this slide nut is actually pretty tight in there, and so what I'm going to do, if you have one of our T-handle Allen wrenches, because it's plastic and you won't damage the end of this, you can start tapping that to get it out. If you don't have that, then a piece of wood, tap it with something else. As long as what you're tapping onto this is softer than steel, I would go with wood versus aluminum. Okay, and there we go. Now it's coming out. We use Super Lube. It's a synthetic grease that's got Teflon in it to lubricate our ways and also our screws. We use oil to lubricate them once you've got it all together, but initially we will put the Super Lube on it. Okay, right now, because there's a cavity about 1 inch long between the saddle nut and the slide nut, if I put some Super Lube on the screw right here, no matter how far the screw goes in and out, the grease will stay captured within those two nuts. So basically what I do is I just doesn't take much. Okay, I'm just going to take a dab, okay, and on the screw, a little bit goes a long way. All right. Okay, now when I put it back together, that's going to be on the inside. All right. Now we put it back on, and again we put it on with the small chamfer onto the screw first. All right, now I push it in. Okay. Okay, and I want to make sure I'm seated all the way up against the shoulder. It's a little snug right there, which is normal. I want to push my saddle back on so it doesn't come off inadvertently. Okay, and you can see it. Okay, if you listen to the difference the sound makes when I'm tapping this on. Okay, when you get to the shoulder, the sound changes. Okay, you heard a difference in sound right there? That means I'm up against the shoulder. If you want to double check to make sure it's in, you can take the set screw all the way out and look down inside, and you should see brass. I can tell by the feel that I'm up against the shoulder on this one. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw this set screw down onto the brass insert. Okay, I want to have the screw sticking out a little bit further so I can actually turn it to get my adjustment on this correct. Okay, this set screw, along with the shoulder and the slight press in that part of the hole, is what holds the slide nut in place. So you want to have this guy tight enough so that that slide nut cannot spin. But if you go too tight, you will actually collapse the slide nut onto the thread and lock this thing up solid. So what you want to do is you start tightening it right there. It's touching, okay, and you want to turn your screw, okay. Then I put it in this way, and I'm going to tighten it down some more, and that's pretty serious tightening right there. Okay, right there, I'm locked up. I'm going to back it out a little bit. Okay, now it's screwing easy, easy. And I'm going to go, that's still easy. Okay, getting a little bit tighter. All right, it's still easy, but it's in there. It's a good feel. Okay, now you can see the grease is all here in the middle zone. So as I turn this guy in, all that grease will now be captured inside the saddle between the two nuts. Okay, now I'm going to bring my anti-backlash nut down inside here. Okay, and this might be a little bit hard to get started. If it is, put your screwdriver on there and give it some taps to get it going. Okay, right now this guy's threaded in by hand easily. And I'm going to thread it in by hand as far as I can. Okay, and we're not going to adjust this right now. We're going to wait till the hand wheel's on. Okay, the preload nut, I'm going to back off. Okay, if you look at the end of the screw here, this is a tapered 15-degree taper, and there's a mating 15-degree taper inside the hand wheel. So you have a taper to taper fit, and that's what locks this thing down in place with the hand wheel. All right. Okay, now I'm going to move my saddle back up. Because we didn't move this guy, this relationship between screw and hand wheel assembly is correct right now. Okay, and it lines up with the hole very nicely right there. Okay, now I'm going to put my 540 screw back in here, down the center of the hand wheel. Okay, all right. And now I'm going to lock this down good and tight. So I'll use the hand wheel against the Allen wrench again, basically. And we got about a ½ inch of thread. You can go pretty darn tight on this without worrying about stripping the thread out. Okay, that guy is locked in there for good right there. All right. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the anti-backlash lock back on here, and then we're going to adjust the anti-backlash. So I move it away from the hand wheel so I have access to it. Okay, now I want to put this guy back on. Okay, generally it's easier if you get the locking collar all the way down towards the end of the screw. Get it in place, get it to mesh with the anti-backlash nut, knurl to knurl. Okay, and then get the screw started. Oh, that's off. Okay, once you get in a thread or two, then it's easy. Again, keep it meshed with the anti-backlash nut. Okay, now I'm going to bring it down until it bottoms out to make sure that I'm meshed with both of these, which I am. Okay, then I'm going to back this off about half a turn. Okay, all right, so now these two are free to move. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my screwdriver blade on one of the knurls, and because it's a left-hand thread, you can see the anti-backlash nut is now tightening up. Okay, I can get it to the point, if I go too far with this, I can get it to the point where this guy almost locks up solid, okay? And I don't want it there, okay? That's, if I was machining, I would want it nice and tight like this, because you guys are just using it to laser engrave and you just want it to move nice and freely. I would actually back it off a little bit. Okay, and I've got easy movement right there, and about 2 lines of backlash is what I've got. So right there looks good. It moves easy, it's accurate. 2/1000ths worth of backlash you're never going to notice in your laser job, and it'll be easy to operate. And tighten that down. Then I'm going to try it again. Okay, when I tightened it, it got just a little bit tighter. I'm going to back it off just a hair. A little bit hair more to compensate for the fact that when I tighten this screw, it's actually tightening it up a little bit more. All right, that's pretty sweet right there. So I'm going to lock that in place. Okay, if you're having a problem with your anti-backlash nut coming out of this, there's only 2 reasons that can happen. One is this comes loose and allows this guy to spin, or your nut inside the saddle, the set screw, has allowed that nut to come loose. One or the other of these has got to be able to turn freely in order for this thing to come apart like that. Okay, next one is your preload nut right here. And what we're doing is taking the preload out of the 2 bearings that are sandwiched in here. This does not have to be a lot of pressure. Okay, if you put a lot of pressure on here, you're just going to ruin the bearings. So put it up like so. Okay, that's pretty nice. It's not moving anywhere. Okay, so that's all good. Okay, now I'm going to move my x-axis in to about the midway point. Now, one other thing, this stop nut or stop screw, oh, this one's got to be in too. Forgot my stop screws. We'll get that guy in there. Okay, this stop screw keeps your saddle from coming all the way off the table, off of the base. Okay, this one keeps these nuts from interfering with the preload nut. With it off, I can jam the preload, or I can jam the anti-backlash nut all the way into the preload nut, which will break this nut free. With this stop screw in here, it will stop the saddle before they make contact. Okay, so we're almost touched right here. If you can see it here. They're almost touching each other, and it hits the stop screw and it stops. So this contact never happens. That's why that stop screw's got to be there. Okay, now right now I'm moving this, and this is feeling a little bit on the tight side to me, so I'm going to back it off a little bit more. There we go. All right, that feels better. Okay, tighten this down all the way. Okay. Okay, the next one is putting back our support for the other end of the x-axis. And actually when I do this, I want this end of the table up as close as I can get it to the saddle. I want to show you, this is why we want to have the table as close to the saddle as possible when we put our hand wheel assembly or our lead screw support on. This is how much the lead screw can possibly move, all right? If the lead screw is slightly bent, which, I mean, you can see there, that amount of wobble there is nothing, okay? However, okay, we'll exaggerate, if it was all the way out to, say, here, and I put my lead screw support on here, when I bring my saddle all the way out, the closer I get to the end, the more it binds because it's not truly on center with the saddle. Okay, so we will move the saddle all the way down so that our alignment when we assemble this is dead on. Okay. All right, right now that's nice and tight up at the end. We're good. So now I'm going to put my backside support on, thrust collar and bushing. Okay, so basically what I do is I put the bushing, oh, hold on, gotta move it out past the gib. Okay, all right, I'm gonna put it on the bushing, and again the shoulder of the bushing is up against the thrust collar facing the screw. I put it on like so, and then I just put my 540 screw back in. Now with it loose, you got a little bit of play, just let it find itself, which I just did, okay, and then just snug it down. Okay, there you go. All right, and this guy is ready to go. Then all that's left is putting the locking screw back in here on the mill saddle. Right there, and we're finished with that. Okay. All right, the next part, which is the fun part, is putting the laser tooling plate back onto the table. I find that the easiest way to do this is not to try and mount the table on the tooling plate onto the table, but to mount the table upside down onto the tooling plate. So we'll get this guy about even so it balances nicely. Okay. All right, so first of all, and this is very important, okay, if you look at the table, okay, there's the Sherline product logo, laser engraved right here. That should be the top left corner. And right down here, we've got, I'm sorry, right here, you've got the 3A16 tapped hole, and right below it is this hole, and it's out of sequence with the rest of the hole pattern. This hole lines up with our oiler right here, okay? Set this down for a second. That hole will line up with the top of the oiler here. Because the tooling plate is always over the top, I would remove the cap from the top of the oiler so you have easier access. You can hold on to it or whatever you want to do. Okay, but anyhow, once you move the table over, this hole will line up directly over this, and you can squirt oil into your oiler, which will lubricate your X and Y axis screw. Okay? Okay, now as far as putting it on, I want to have it assembled this way. So as I'm looking at it, the Sherline logo is top left. So I'm going to flip the tooling plate over like so. Okay. Then I'm going to flip over my XY. And the easiest way to get these guys started again is put your table down and then just align your T-nuts with the T-slots. Okay, that guy's in, that guy's in. Then we just glide it down to the next T-nuts. If you've got more in here, you're just gliding it through each one as you go. Again, I'm just using the 4 at each, the 2 at each end for a total of 4. Okay. Flip it over. Okay, now there's some slop back and forth this way. Basically what I do is I get it even with both ends of the table, and then I push it towards the back side, and then I tighten these guys down. Okay, and this just needs to be finger tight like that. Okay, if you really cinch it down, you'll just rip the T-slots out of the table. Okay, so right like that, that's good and snug, and that's all it needs to be. There you go. And we're back in action with our XY table. Okay, now this guy, as far as lining up with the oiler and the mill saddle, I just crank it down, got my finger next to it, so when I feel when the oiler body hits my finger, I'm getting pretty close. Okay, right there I've got a touch. Just look down inside. Oop. There we go. Okay. Okay. That's sitting right in the center of the oiler cap. So with my can of oil, just fill the oiler right there. Move my axis in and out a few times. Move it around to get the oil dispersed. If you do that once a week, if you're doing a lot of laser engraving work, which most people are, then that will make your lead screw and your nuts last a lot longer. Lubrication works wonders. Okay. All right. What we use for lubrication on the slide and the screw is Super Lube. It's a synthetic grease that's got Teflon in it. You just wipe it onto the screw, wipe it onto your ways. You can see where this one has got the grease on the dovetails, and then we put grease on the screws, and you're good to go. Okay, we're going to change the saddle or the anti-backlash and slide nut on the x-axis now. So if you've already done the y-axis, and just as with the x-axis, it has an access hole to the slide nut through the saddle on the top right here. In order to do the x-axis, the access hole to the set screw is on the bottom of the mill saddle. So what we're going to do is move this guy over, just to make it easier to work with. Okay, and now we're going to take this guy. All right, and now we're looking for the access hole on the bottom side of the mill saddle right here. So as you get there, stop. So we're going to stop right there. Okay, and we've got our access hole right here. Okay, that goes into the slide nut for the x-axis. Okay. All right, this guy's broken loose. Gotta get it out of there. Okay. So what I'm doing right now is getting the anti-backlash nut freed from the saddle. Okay, I can take this guy all the way off. Oh. Okay, once he's free, he should spin right out like so. Get it up about 2 or 3 inches. Okay, then what I'm going to do is push. Okay, and I just push my slide nut out of the saddle. Okay, and there's my slide nut. Pull this off like so. Take my slide nut off. Yeah, the slide nut is off. Okay, preload nut is loosened. Now I'm going to break this guy loose. My 540 on the hand wheel. Okay, and my slide screw. Move my saddle down. Should be able to get it out without taking it all the way off. There we go. Okay, so my screw is out. Screw still looks good. Now I'm going to replace my backlash nut and my slide nut with new ones. Okay, so I've got my new anti-backlash nut on. I want to add a little bit of grease right in this area, so it again is captured between my slide nut and my anti-backlash nut. And just a little dab. There we go. Okay, myself a little more space here. Okay, put the screw back in, pull the saddle back up a little ways. Okay, and actually what I'll do is put the hand wheel together right here first. Okay, again, because we never removed this assembly, this is still aligned with the saddle nut, so we're good on that. Then we'll use the hand wheel to work against the Allen wrench to lock the taper fit down. Good and tight on that so it doesn't come loose. Okay. The small chamfer goes towards the saddle. Okay, that's inside the saddle. Okay, I'm going to push the saddle. Okay, right there, it fit all the way in. Okay, if you want to check it to see if it's all the way there, you can just take the set screw out and look down and you'll see the brass piece in there. Okay, if it doesn't go all the way in, take a piece of wood, put it on your saddle, and tap your saddle down until you hear the tonal change again when it's bottomed out on the shoulder inside. Okay, now what I'm going to do is tighten this guy. The anti-backlash nut is not involved yet, so all I'm feeling when I do this adjustment is the slide nut and the screw. I'm going to bring it down until it touches. There's my set screw into the slide nut. Okay, and right now it's turning real easy. Okay, I'll go this way. All right, I'm going to go about a quarter turn. That's still easy. About a 1/16 of a turn, still easy. Okay, it's starting to get just a hair snug right now. Okay, a little more space, a little more of a turn. Okay. Okay, right now I've got resistance, so that's too tight. Okay, a little more. All right, that feels good right there. Okay. Now I'm going to bring it. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to bring my anti-backlash nut into the saddle. So that's all the way into the saddle. Take my Allen wrench out. Okay, I'm going to put my anti-backlash nut lock back on. Okay, and I want to locate the anti-backlash lock in the knurl on the anti-backlash nut. And then come in here and find the screw hole, thread this guy in. That way my teeth are aligned with the lock and the nut. Okay, so right now this guy's going to be about a half turn loose, so it's still free to turn. Let me get my jeweler's screwdriver again. Okay, that's loosening, so I'm going to go this way. Okay, right there's nice and getting snug. Okay, right there's probably a little bit too snug, so I'm going to back it off just a hair. Okay, that feels good right there. I'm going to lock the anti-backlash nut in place. Okay, that just tightened up a little bit right there, but it's still good. Feels good still. So that guy's locked in place. So this assembly won't come out. We're locked there, we're locked here. That's all good. Okay, we're going to do the preload nut. Okay, and again, you're just going snug on the preload nut. Okay, as long as it's not coming undone here, you're good. All right, and again, this hard stop here will keep the anti-backlash nut from interfering with the preload nut. So that's all good. Okay, and then run it up and down. Okay, last one is we want to move our saddle close to the end so that we can align this guy, which is what we went over earlier in the video. This is your support for the end of the screw. Get your saddle down close to the end, and we assemble this. That's it.